Okay, let's get started. So welcome everybody to the last Wednesday at 1 session for 2022. My name is Kathy Albright and I'm the project coordinator at the Employment Sector Council. And I'm joined actually today by my co-host, Tamara Cottery, who is the Executive Director for Literacy Link South Central, as well as a member of the ESC Training and Development Committee. So we welcome you. We're very fortunate actually to have the City of London as a supporter and a sponsor for our Wednesday at 1 presentations as part of their pandemic recovery program, where they're hoping to drive community and economic recovery across our region by bringing us all together to learn, to share, and to connect with each other. As I mentioned, this is our last presentation of 2023, but we already have 2 presentations scheduled for our 2022. So we already have 2 presentations scheduled for 2023, and you're going to be learning more about them if you receive our newsletter. So please continue to join us. If you have any ideas for any future sessions, I will be putting my email address in the link, so please feel free to share your suggestions for topics with me. Okay, so today I am very happy to introduce our guest speaker, Summer Burton. So Summer is from Literacy Link. With a corporate and nonprofit background that includes adult education and administration, Summer has almost 20 years of experience in writing, editing, designing, and facilitation. She has done extensive work in curriculum development, and her key focuses include adult learning philosophies, gamification, and play as a means of learning, social media, and communication. Summer is a level 1 empathy toy trainer, an applied improv practitioner, and the winner of the Council of the Federation Literacy Award for her innovative curriculum design. In recent years, Summer has worked with both adult literacy and workforce planning organizations across the province, developing resources, facilitating webinars and training sessions, and writing reports focused on issues impacting education and employment. So today, Summer will be sharing with us and talking with us about how adult literacy programs help build skills adults need for employment, and how literacy and employment programs can work together effectively. She'll also offer tips on identifying if your client may have undisclosed literacy needs and how to get a referral or recommendations. So Summer, I'm going to hand it off to you.
Thank you so much, Kathy. I really appreciate your introduction, and I'm thrilled to be here with all of you today. As you can see, we do have a slide presentation that I'm going to go through as we're chatting, but this is very informal. So I invite you to raise a hand and ask any questions as we go. I invite you to use the chat as well. I won't be able to see it the full time, but I'll definitely pop in and out just to check and see if there's anything happening there that I should know about, okay? So to get us started, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Literacy Link South Central, so you know about our organization for those who don't already know us. We're a regional literacy network, and we work with adult literacy programs, about 6 counties worth of them here in southwestern Ontario. So we serve Brant, Haldimand, Norfolk, Elgin, Oxford, and Middlesex, London. And what that support looks like is different depending on what program we're working with. We coordinate adult literacy services, and that coordination involves literacy programs that are at community-based organizations that are embedded within school boards, as well as associated with colleges. So as part of that work, we do a lot of work with organizations like the Employment Sector Council. We also work with employment agencies, labor unions, social services, small businesses, and the Small Business Center to help their employees and clients build the skills that they need to be successful in whatever their long-term and short-term goals are. We also do sessions like this, which is to help people have a deeper understanding of adult literacy, as well as some of the really key things that adult literacy connects to, which can include earning a high school credential, gaining the skills that you need for employment, and apprenticeship success. So I'll get into a little bit more of that in just a moment. We did put together a little agenda today, and Kathy summed it up for us right at the beginning, which is great. I'm going to start talking about what literacy is. And I think we all have an idea of what literacy is already. But what's interesting is that it has really changed as time has progressed, and it means a whole lot more than it used to. So we'll talk about that. I'll talk about adult literacy programs and what exactly it is they do and why they do it. We will talk about some clues or tips, little things that might make you wonder if there's an undisclosed literacy issue with one of your clients. And we'll, of course, talk about how you can get some help for them. And one of the pieces of that help could potentially be something called an educational interview. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that. So when we talk about literacy, one of the first things that happens for a lot of people is that they don't hear the word literacy. They actually hear the word illiterate. And when they hear that word, it's a bit of a block. It's a shutdown moment for a lot of people. So illiterate, when you hear that word, you think someone who cannot read or write. Full stop. Literacy is about a whole lot more than reading and writing, although absolutely that is a foundational piece of it. The word itself has, however, really evolved over time, and the skills that are associated with literacy have grown and evolved over time as well. What's interesting is that for our organization, I'm the communications director, and part of that role means keeping an eye on what's going on in the media and being prepared to communicate and share literacy initiatives that are happening not just locally, but across the province and across Canada, and sometimes even beyond. So I have a Google alert set up, which will tell me anytime the word literacy is used in the news. And interestingly, for about every 10 alerts that I get, one of them has to do with what you might consider traditional literacy. The rest of the time, the word literacy, even in the media, has changed to mean something new. If you think about the way that word is used when you talk about health, it's health literacy. You hear people talk about science, scientific literacy. You hear people talk about money, it's financial literacy. So if you think, how do I replace that word? It's really an understanding of, right? It's an understanding of finances. Your digital or computer literacy, that's understanding being able to successfully use a computer. Your health literacy is understanding what impacts your health. So really, literacy is an understanding on a much broader scope. Now, it doesn't mean that literacy programs teach absolutely everything, but they do teach a lot more than just reading and writing. So the things that are taught in an adult literacy program, these are sort of the key parts that we look at. And there's something that are referred to as the skills for success. Now, many of us may have been familiar with the essential skills, which were the 9 skills that the Canadian government identified as being the skills everyone in Canada needs in order to be successful in any field, in any job, and in life in general. They have recently been changed to something called the skills for success. And all of these skills are either already embedded or are being embedded within literacy programs here in Ontario. So they include some of the things you would expect, like reading and writing. They also include math and digital technology. And then the second column there starts getting into what I would call softer skills, interpersonal skills, behavioral skills, thinking skills. So we have things like problem solving, the ability to communicate, creativity and innovation. I like that one. I think it ties beautifully with problem solving too. Collaboration, right? The ability to work with other people. And adaptability. Have we not all encountered about 1 million ways we had to be more adaptable since, roughly March of 2020? There are lots and lots of reasons why people need to adapt, not just for, work reasons, but also for life reasons, as I think we've all experienced. And within those programs, a really big piece of what our practitioners are teaching are learning skills, how to study, how to get ready to take tests, things like that. So some things to know about Ontario's adult literacy programs are that they are funded through Employment Ontario. So I know we have representatives here today from Employment Services that are also part of the Employment Ontario umbrella. We are your siblings. We are your brothers and sisters in Employment Ontario. Our literacy programs are offered in English, in French, as well as in Braille and sign language for those folks who have either a hearing or a vision disability that they need to still be able to work within while they're attending a literacy program. They are absolutely unlike traditional school. So when you think about walking into a classroom, I'm sure that you have the vision, as all of us do, of a row of desks facing a board and one teacher standing in front who's going to tell everyone about a particular subject or a lesson. And that is not at all what adult literacy programs look like. The reason for that is because what brings someone to an adult literacy program varies drastically from person to person. So instead of teaching one single lesson, adult literacy practitioners figure out what the student needs to learn, and they get a customized, individualized lesson specifically for those topics. Rarely does anyone come into an adult literacy program without having some foundational skills. Often what they have are a couple of holes, something that they need to improve, that they need to work on. Great strengths in one area, maybe some challenges in another. So these folks that are coming into classes don't need to be taught what they already know. They need to be taught the parts that they need to strengthen a little bit to be successful. That's why all of the programming that happens in literacy programs really varies from student to student. There are 9 different organizations in London that offer some element of adult literacy training, and that can be delivered in a whole lot of different ways. So in some cases, particularly when everything is open and running well and we don't have to say the COVID word, they are delivered in person. They are delivered online, both in times of crisis because they need to be, and also as a structured program that was developed originally to be delivered online. And also through hybrid situations where somebody could, say, pop into a program 2 days a week and then do the remainder of their learning online from home. One of the things that's important for clients in particular to know is that adult literacy programs are free because they are funded through Employment Ontario. So what does it take to be eligible to attend a literacy program? First of all, this is adult education. So it is intended for people 19 years of age and older who live in Ontario, who can speak and listen at a Canadian language benchmark of 6 or above in either English or French. So if someone, for those folks who are very familiar, and I know I saw on our registrants list, Luso was going to be joining us today. Some folks, particularly in their program, you're going to know those Canadian language benchmarks inside and out. Other people may not be as familiar with them, but they are the measurement of English or French language competency. And they're measured in 4 separate different categories: speaking, listening, reading, and writing. So for someone to have the ability to join an English delivered or French delivered literacy program, they just need to be able to understand the instructions enough to be able to benefit from the program. That's not the reading. It's not the writing. It's just the speaking and listening portion. Facilitators in literacy can get them through the rest. And then the last piece that is required as eligibility is to have a need. If you have a need in some of the categories that we've discussed already of learning, you need to upgrade your math skills. You know, maybe you are fabulous at sending texts, but a formal email, something you've never had to do before. There are lots of things on that list of reading, writing, math, digital skills, and all of those interpersonal community or communication style skills that people may need to upgrade. Our literacy programs will do an assessment with someone when they first come in to say, I think I might like to join the program. What do you have to offer? And if there's a need, then they can get service. And this is why I've put a couple of asterisks on this screen, because there are some differences here between what people assume and what is really what happens within the adult literacy system. So the first thing is, and this is a difference between the eligibility for English as a second language programs. Immigration and citizenship status are not considered as part of eligibility when it comes to adult literacy programs. It's not something that we look at as long as someone is legally able to work in Ontario. So they do need to have a social insurance number. And then the second piece is about that need for upgrading. There is a perception that somebody who would need support from a literacy program may have dropped out in high school. You know, maybe they didn't finish their grade 12, and that's why they need a literacy program, because they missed some of their earlier education. What's remarkable is that many, many people with a high school certificate still need some additional support in filling in some of those skill areas. So it does not matter if you have a high school certificate of some kind or another. You're eligible if you have a need. You can have a college diploma. You're eligible if you have a need. It's about what people need, not about what certification they have already gathered. Unfortunately, your skill level does not always match what your piece of paper says. So with that in mind, it's not about whatever credentials someone else may have already gathered in their schooling career. If there's a need, literacy programs can help. So for the most part, when people come to literacy programs, they have a specific goal in mind. What is it they want to learn or upgrade in their skills? And most of that is tied to a reason. So for example, these are sort of our top 5. This is our top 5 list of reasons people come to an adult literacy program. They may have been the person that I described a minute ago, where they did leave high school prior to graduating. They do not have a grade 12 diploma. And as I assume most of us know, that is a real stopper for a lot of people when it comes to getting and keeping a job. There are lots of organizations that will absolutely require you to have a grade 12 diploma and to prove it, to upload transcripts, things like that as part of the application process. So many people, if they've been out of high school, they did not complete their high school education, and they're getting ready to consider going back and getting over that hurdle so that they can change their employment future, they would be very well served by an adult literacy program. You know, I think back to, I will not say the number of years ago that I graduated high school, but if I was asked to do certain things that I was doing in high school, math, at the same level I was doing it in high school, when I haven't done that level of math since then, I would have a problem. If I were asked to reproduce my grade 12 math right now, I would be in trouble. So if I was going to say, okay, well, I'm going to upgrade my grade 12 math credit, I would be very smart to go to an adult literacy program first and brush up on my math skills so that when I start that credit, I'm ready for it. You know, it's a really big step for people to decide that they're going to return to education, particularly if they've been away a long time. So what we don't want to do is say, oh, you finished in grade 10. Okay, let's sign you up 25 years later for grade 11 courses. That can be incredibly intimidating. And then that loss of learning is not really taken into effect. If somebody is taking that step and they're ready to go back, we want to make sure that they will be successful. Don't walk into a classroom, feel lesser than, and leave as a result, because they may never come back. So adult literacy programs are here to help people make sure that they're ready for whatever that step is. It doesn't just have to be high school, although obviously that is the first thing I put on our list here. It can also be getting ready for college or university. Again, if you've been out of learning for a long time, and there are certain areas you're going to need to be able to demonstrate skills in that you're not quite comfortable with, literacy programs can help. This is a big one, and I'm going to talk in our next slide just a little bit more about this, which is why you'll notice it's highlighted in purple. The need to practice either the hands-on, and this is where that math comes up again, or in school parts of apprenticeship training. For any of us who work in the world of apprenticeship, we know that Ontario, quite frankly, is in a state of crisis when it comes to skilled tradespeople. There are not nearly as many people in the skilled trades as we need to be in the skilled trades. And part of why that's happening, and not the only reason, but part of it is that a lot of people hear about the skilled trades, that it is hands-on only. So it doesn't matter if you can't book learn, or you can't take a test, or you can't write to describe what you do as a tradesperson. Doesn't matter. That's hands-on training. And that is a really big myth, because in order to successfully work your way through the apprenticeship system, you are going to go to college level classes. And if you're not ready to take those college level classes, this is where a lot of people drop out of the apprenticeship system. As of right now, the number of people who sign up as an apprentice, sign with the Ministry of Labor, Immigration, Training, and Skills Development versus the number of people who complete their apprenticeship is hovering around 50%. These other folks are disappearing along the way, not just because of the educational component, but it is part of it. And it is something that adult literacy programs can support. Working towards independence is another category. So people will come to an adult literacy program if they've never been taught how to budget and they don't really understand how to save money, how to do that kind of stuff. Great, fabulous. Maybe you've been living in a large family for a really long time, and now you're out on your own and you don't know how to hack a recipe. Just independence skills. Literacy programs can help with that too. And then, of course, this is critical to this conversation, have to develop skills to be successful for work. And while that looks different for a lot of people, depending on what type of work you're trying to do, one thing that's pretty consistent is if you think back to that list of things that literacy programs help people develop, a lot of those interpersonal teamwork, those skills are consistent almost no matter what job you do. And so are, for the most part, reading, writing, math, and computers. Are there very many jobs nowadays where you're not going to end up face-to-face with a piece of digital technology at some point? Very, very few. And that's just going to continue to happen. So we're entering an even more advanced digital age at every step. So good to have those skills. So when I think about how adult literacy programs support specifically employees and apprentices or people who are looking to get into the skilled trades, this is where that customized, individualized training really comes into play. So as an example, rather than just saying, let's talk about fractions, we'll teach you fractions. If someone is in a position where they're going to be getting into construction, let's talk about fractions as they pertain to measuring units of wood, right? It's contextualized. We can do exercises with people about estimating time, materials, and costs for a construction project, instead of it being something that is vague and not necessarily connected to their long-term goal. Our literacy programs help people figure out how to read a document and not just read it and say, okay, there, I've read it, but really understand what they're reading and how it connects to other things. So it's sort of that comprehension piece. And that can be anything from initial hire training manuals to how-to documents. There's a lot of information that we don't just read, but we have to know what to do with it next, right? Our programs can help people with filling in forms, writing reports, creating invoices, again, all very contextualized to the workplace. And as I said earlier, working with other people, which is contextualized in pretty much every workplace at this point. So I'm going to pause for just a moment and check the chat and see if there's anything that I should be answering in there. Okay, so I have a question in here about audio resources for driver's license training. I will take that as a takeaway. That's a great question. In my head at this moment, I don't, but I do know that there is driver's license prep training at several literacy and basic skills programs. So I think that the answer will be yes, but I'll get back to you.
If I can also mention as well, If anybody's going to share a question in the chat, could you share it with everybody? Because everybody would probably love to see what the questions are.
Oh, I didn't
And
see it
then
was
let's see.
not. Got it.
So just an aside. So,
Perfect.
awesome.
All right. So this is an interesting one. This is something that can be tricky, and that's how to find out if someone has a literacy issue. Very few people will say, "Hi, my name is Summer, and I really struggle with literacy." It's just not something people will do. There's a sense of pride that prevents people from disclosing this information. And there is also a huge misconception about people's skill levels. And what I mean by that is that there are surveys that happen asking people about their literacy skills and do you think you're a good reader? Do you think you're a good writer? Where do you think your literacy skills fall? And then activities or assessments are done. And the difference between someone's own perception of their literacy skills and where their skills actually fall, they aren't actually the same in some circumstances. So someone may not even realize they have a problem, but they may have a problem. Others know they have a problem. They know that they struggle with this, but they don't want to talk to you about it. It's not something that feels comfortable. It's a very vulnerable place to be. And they have probably spent years coming up with strategies to cope with it. Many people have a support network that are helping them with that coping with it. So prepare to know that not everyone is going to tell you. However, there are a couple of things that may make you go, and here are some of them. So frequent job turnovers is one of them. And I know there are lots of people who go through frequent job turnovers. One of the reasons for that, particularly when it comes to a time of change or training in a job, is that there are people who are experts at what they do. They're excellent and they'll be fine until something changes. And automation is a really big piece of that. So we all know that things are changing in the world of digital technology in leaps and bounds. And places that didn't have digital technology as part of the work that they did now suddenly do. So someone who doesn't have the ability to understand the training material that they've been given, especially if it's not delivered voice to voice like this, but here's your manual, go read it. When that is the time that they drop out of employment, oh, it turned out my boss was awful and, I just couldn't stay there anymore. I'd been thinking of leaving for years. Interesting timing, right? Just interesting timing. Historically speaking, multiple interruptions in education for obvious reasons can lead to somebody having missed parts of their educational training that would develop a stronger literacy foundation. And then the trickier stuff. So seeming forgetfulness can be a sign of a literacy issue. And by that, I mean, oh yeah, I was going to fill that out, but my pen isn't working. I can't do that right now. Or you know what? I can't see very well. I broke my glasses or I forgot them at home. So I'm not going to be able to complete this paperwork right now. Those are both things that you can go, okay, interesting. Sudden illness or injury. Again, lots of reasons people could be forgetful or have a sudden injury. But if exactly when they need to start filling something out, there's an injury to their hand that wasn't there yesterday and they didn't mention until they had to fill something out, that might make me raise an eyebrow too. Not having received the paperwork you sent. So as an example, often we will send, a pre-assessment for someone who's going to be joining a program, or maybe we want them to fill out a form to tell them a little bit about themselves before they join our program. If they didn't get the paperwork, even though you sent it, and everyone else in the group got it but them, sure, could absolutely have gone to their junk mail, but it's also a really good excuse to why it's not filled out. Okay. Referencing other documents while filling out a document is another one. And I've seen this with my own eyes a few times where people will be filling in a form that they need, Employment Ontario form. They need to fill it in order to join a program, to get some kind of service. And out from a bag subtly comes an envelope with stuff written on it. And they're not really filling in the forms so much as copying the information they know that you're asking for, because the forms ask for the same kind of thing in lots of different ways. You can recognize the pattern, right? But they're copying it off of something else instead of thinking of it, reading what you want, and then writing it. And then the famous something just came up. Oh, yeah, my kid's sick. I gotta go pick them up. I'm sorry. I'm gonna take this paperwork with me and I'll bring it back to our next meeting. None of these things are things that don't really happen in real life. So please know, the first person who something comes up for does not mean they are struggling with literacy, but these are all techniques that are frequently seen with people who are struggling with literacy. So I talked about many people will have a support network. They've had people that have been helping them so that they can be successful despite having a literacy barrier. Somebody else, if you don't see them fill that form out, they may very well come back with it beautifully filled out, but we don't know that it was them who did it. So these are all little tips and tricks that you can use just to think about if something might be going on. And if you think that there is something going on, then there's the next step. What do we do about it? So the first thing that I would say is it is sensitive. It's a sensitive topic. People are not comfortable being told that they need to upgrade their skills. So one of the ways that we can frame it is talking about what they want. What is it they want? Are they working really hard to get a job at a specific company because they know that they're really good, the pay is good there? Well, that company really wants to hire people that have X. And I know of a program, doesn't have to be called literacy, but I know of a program that can help you get that skill so that your resume comes to the top of the pile when you're trying to apply for that particular job. I know that's what you want. You want to be hired by that company. Here's a program that can help you develop the skills you need so you get what you want. I already said, don't use the word literacy. You don't have to. We call it just about everything, upgrading, skill development. We can position it however it needs to be positioned. Something for those folks who are here with employment services and under our Employment Ontario umbrella, that's really important to know is that literacy and basic skills and employment services are able to be coordinated with no problem. Unlike a client who, say, might be being served by one employment services agency who wants to go to another one because they offer some kind of specialty programming, you don't have to close the file at employment services to open a file in literacy and basic skills. They are intended to be used like this, to be supportive of each other and to help clients develop the skills they need. The last thing we want them to do is leave an employment service because their ultimate goal is to get a job. We're just going to help coordinate with them and give them the skills they need so that that can happen. When it comes to getting help for your clients, I kind of have two different options, one of which is for anyone, which is just pick up the phone and call Literacy Link South Central. We do what we call a small R referral, which means there's no paperwork. Give us a call, talk to us about your client. We'll ask you a few questions, where do they live? How far did they go in school? What do you know about, their specific needs or goals? We'll ask you a couple of questions and then we can make a recommendation for a program. We also offer something called educational interviews. And educational interviews are a big R referral. They are much more thorough than let's just chat on the phone for a few minutes and I'm going to send you an email with a contact at a literacy program. We have a contract with the City of London, Ontario Works. So any of the clients that you may work with who are on Ontario Works could potentially benefit from an educational interview. They are a one-on-one conversation with someone who works in adult literacy. They are a significant length of time in that they're usually an hour to an hour and 15-minute meeting with this one person who's now going to be your researcher and your guide to what should happen next based on the conversation. And the conversation itself is all about education and employment history, sort of how far did you go in school? What went well for you in school? What did you really enjoy? What did you find difficult? And starting to get into some of those things that can tell us a bigger story. Like, did you ever go to the resource room when you were in school? Did you have something called an IEP? Does that ring a bell? Things like that. We also talk about employment history and, what did you like about that job? What did you learn? Oh, it sounds like you were really good at fill in the blank here. We then have the client do some self-assessments. I think I'm really good at this. I wish I could do that better in several of the key categories of adult literacy. And we also do some actual activities. So if somebody says, ugh, you know what, I'm fine with reading and writing. I love doing that. I have my own blog. I do this, I do that, but I can't math my way out of a paper bag, then we will probably do a small math activity with them just to get a sense of how uncomfortable are they? Are they uncomfortable enough that they don't want to add a 2-digit number? Or are they fine with that? And it's once you get to fractions and decimals and talking about those that they go, now I'm done. And it could just give you a sense of where their skill levels lie. And the interviewer will also talk with them about sort of their short and long-term educational and employment goals. And from there, something called an educational goal report is the result. And that's written by the person who does the interview. So they're, firsthand knowledge. It summarizes the conversation they had with the client and then provides a step-by-step plan for whatever educational upgrading that person needs in order to achieve whatever goal they've set. Pardon me. So that could be a short goal. It's like, I want to get my grade 12 and I want to get a job. Okay. And you've finished grade 11. You just need to kind of finish up a little upgrading, finish your grade 12. Or it could be much longer. Maybe they need to find their high school transcripts. Maybe they need to upgrade, and I'm going to have to pause for a sec. Kathy, you can cut that part out, right? All right. It could be a much longer journey. Somebody may have to do upgrading, complete their high school education or an equivalent, and then do some post-secondary. So our educators can find out exactly what prerequisites they would need. Where is a post-secondary program that's tied to their career choice located? What is it that they would need in order to be accepted? Even things like, where could they go for some funding to support their post-secondary journey? All of that can be included in the educational goal report, depending on the needs of the client. And then that report goes to the client, goes to their Ontario Works caseworker, and can also be shared with, say, their employment counselor, so that there's a team now of people who are helping this client work towards their success. So to wrap up, if you're interested in more information about literacy in general, about how our programs can work with your programs, if you're looking for a referral, small r or otherwise, feel free, please, to reach out. Our contact information is on the screen. And a copy of this slide deck will be added to the chat so you can have a copy of it as well. And I will stop sharing my screen and probably cough for a second as well.
So while Summer is drinking some water and getting rid of that wonderful tickle, which all of us have had at one time or another, does anybody have any questions for Summer that they would like to ask? If you do, if you'd like to put it in the chat, that would be great.
Is it okay? Is it okay if I just ask the question without typing in the chat? Okay. Thank you. That was really great and informative. I'm an ESL teacher, and it's entirely possible that I could have an adult dealing with literacy, any kind of literacy issue. So let's say, for example, I work at one of the school boards in London, and I think I should refer somebody. Do the school boards have a contract, or do we need to talk to our management in order to get that process done?
It's a pretty uncumbersome process when it comes to literacy. If from a client point of view, they need to fill in the Employment Ontario forms.
Okay.
So that's cumbersome.
Yeah.
But ESL programming and literacy programming, just like employment services and literacy, can be combined.
Okay.
So somebody does not have to leave ESL in order to also take literacy programming.
Okay.
Both of the school boards in London have adult literacy and basic skills.
Okay.
So both the Catholic, I should say both of the English school boards, my apologies.
Okay.
Both the Catholic School Board and the Thames Valley District School Board both have literacy programs.
Okay.
So it can be as simple as just finding out who they are and
Yep.
getting their phone number, and we can help you with that.
Okay. That's good to know. Yeah, that's going to be very helpful.
Wonderful.
To know that.
Hear
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions that they would like to pose? Doesn't look like it. Looks like you covered it all, Summer.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and put the PDF of today's presentation in chat so that everyone has a chance to have a peek at it. Give me just a second there.
Yeah, we will also be putting the posting along with the recording. We'll be posting a copy of the presentation as well on the website. So.
And maybe before we start to lose people who are probably interested in moving on with their day, I'm going to launch a poll, which we'd love it. It's very short and sweet, but your information, your answers are important to us. So give me 1 second here. Okay, so hopefully something has popped up in a magical way on your screen. All right. To give you guys some time to complete that. And while you're doing that, I'd just like to officially thank Summer for doing a wonderful presentation. I mean, I've worked with Summer for over 10 years. You wouldn't think that we have a whole lot left to amaze each other with, but honestly, like, it's such a pleasure to hear her speak and even to say things that I think I already know, but say them even better. So thank you very much, Summer, for sharing that information. I just want to reiterate that, no, we're always here. You know, if there are no stupid questions. We always say that, right? But we mean it, right? You might be thinking, oh, I'm not going to call them and ask them that. Please do. Everybody calls us and asks us unusual questions from time to time. And you know what? We might embark on some research that we need to know the answer to, right? Because one thing that's always fascinating is that no two people are ever alike. Right. So, you know, we often find that we have to do some research here, and we're surprised at the variety of different requests that come in. Okay, so thank you very much, Summer, for your time and your effort today. Very much appreciated. And I think we've had everybody. Can I just end the poll now, Kathy? Is that cool?
Sure. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for doing that. Okay.
Okay. So thanks again, everybody, for joining us. It's been a real pleasure. And as I mentioned before, we do have 2 presentations that are scheduled for 2023 so far, one in January, one in February. In fact, one of the people who is on today's session, Emilian Simeon, will be from the Workplace Planning and Development Board, will be presenting in January, on January the 11th. And will be giving us kind of a tour and an update on the local jobs hub. So keep an eye out in the newsletter that's be going out this weekend for the link to register for that. So thank you again, and I hope everybody has a great day.
Thank you. Thank you, Summer and Tamara.